Welcome to the URock Club. This is actually a website for the URock Club team members, but I'm not going to go into that today. Today I'm going to talk about covered calls and how they relate to renting out property, how they're very similar to that. So let me give you a little bit of visuals. So let's assume you own a house that's worth $200,000. You want to collect rent against it. Let's say you own the house outright, you don't own any mortgages or insurance on it or anything like that. It's just a house that you own that you're collecting rent on. And let's say the rent is $2,000 a month. So let's make it 1% a month for 12% for a year. So this is a passive income that you're generating on this house that you own. And everybody's pretty much familiar with renting property, Airbnb or whatever the case may be. Now, there's a lot of headaches with doing property that I won't go into, but just to assume that all those headaches go away, this is like renting out property, but you want to do it with your portfolio, your stock portfolio, or your brokerage account. Let's say you want to do the same thing. You want to rent out your stock and collect similar, generate the same type of similar passive income. Well, that's what you would do. So you would own $200,000 worth of stock. I'm going to give you an example here shortly where you're going to be able to generate a 1% or $2,000 a month based on that stock. You're going to generate that income. For the year, you're going to collect $24,000 or you're going to get a 12% return passive income on stock that you already own. Now, a lot of people own stock and they may have dividend stocks and collect, maybe a 4% or a 3% dividend, but you can do this against those. But it's even better if you have just a regular stock that doesn't pay a dividend, you want to generate your own dividend, you can do this using this covered call strategy. So how do we do this? How do we generate a 12% return on stocks that we already own? I'm going to walk you through those steps. So even though there's 8 steps here, you really only have to do 5 steps. And a couple of these steps are just a one time and you're done. And then you really only need to do 3 steps. So the first thing you need to do is you need to own or buy 100 shares of the stock. That's how covered calls work. One contract is worth 100 shares. That's just how it works. Now, in order to do this, you need to also have an account, a brokerage account that supports options. Level 1 is the minimum requirement to do covered calls. On top of that, I highly recommend that you use a tax advantage account. If you use a tax advantage account, whenever you sell your stock or sell a covered call, all of those proceeds you won't get taxed against. And so you can wait till a later date to pay those taxes when you actually pull it out. Talk to your tax advisor on how IRAs work. But basically, you don't have to keep track of all of those things because you're going to be doing at least 12 of these a year for each one of your stocks that you have. Now, this is the step that you always have to do every month. You need to select an expiration date. So that's pretty simple. You just select month out. That's your expiration date. And then you need to pick a strike price. This is probably the most complicated part of it, where you need to figure out what is the strike price where I can collect my 1%. Now, I give you a little cheat sheet here. What we use is this thing called Greeks, and we use the delta of the Greeks. And the delta of the Greeks means something else than what I'm going to tell you, but it turns out that it's pretty similar to the percentage likelihood that your call will get called out. So if you pick a delta of 20, that means 20% likelihood that the price of the stock will go over the strike price, which isn't a bad thing at all. It's just telling you what the probability of that actually happening. And I'm going to show you a little bit. I'm going to show you a table here. We'll walk through that in a second to give you more details on that. And then this is the part where you actually do the execution. This is where you actually sell the call option, or they call it writing. You write a call option. I'm going to show you how to do that as well on the E-Trade platform. And then the last three really are just basically monitoring them, monitoring these options during that month. You can look at it and see them, progressing. You don't need to do anything, but you can watch it. But you have some options if you want to close it out early or stuff like that. We're not going to get into that's more an advanced topic. All you got to really know is once you write the call option, you collect your premium and you're done. Okay, and we're going to talk about the potential risk and outcomes. I'll give you those examples. And then, it's smart to, when you first start this, is to track this so that you make sure that you're doing something that you actually end up making money and not losing money. Okay, so let's go to the E-Trade platform. So you put in your stock. In this case, I'm going to use IBIT. And right now, IBIT is going for $51. So if we had $200,000, like our example with the house, we would own 4,000 shares of this. We'd get to about $200,000 worth of IBIT would be 4,000 shares. And you divide that by 100, that tells you how many contracts we could write. So we could write 40 contracts. Now what we do is we go to the option chain here. And in the option chain, you can see it defaults to, it tells you what the price of the stock is 51.52. This is IBIT. This is the December 12th call, which is the end of this week. Today's December 8th. So we want to go a month out. That's the first step. We want to go a month out. So we go a month out. January 9th is a month out. And this shows us our calls and our puts. But we want to see the Greeks. We want to see our likelihood of the actual call getting the strike price actually getting hit. So we click on the Greeks, and then we want to look at all the prices, all the strikes, and we say go. And then basically now what this is telling us is that at a strike price of $30, we could collect $19.70 today for every share. So if we did one contract, well, that would be $19 times 100. Notice the delta is 98.98. That means there's a 98% chance likelihood that within a month that this price will be over $30, which makes sense. This would have to drop a lot in order to be below $30. And as we go up the strike prices, you can see the delta goes down. So if we look at the money, which is at 51.50, right now we could collect 293, and the delta is 53. That means there's a 50-50 chance that the price of the stock within the month will be over 51.50. Now we're looking for a 20% chance here. We don't want to get too greedy, but we want to get some kind of premium. So here we're selecting at a 20% delta, we get a strike price of $58. So the stock is at 51. It'd have to go up past 58 before we get called out. Anything below, we just collect the premium of 75 cents. So for every contract, we collect $75 because that's 75 cents per share, or times 100, that's $75. Okay. And now let's execute that. So step 5, we would just actually want to write that call. And this is how you write that call, or basically sell that covered call. We already own 4,000 shares of IBIT. We're going to sell the call at the open. We're not buying it, we're selling it because we own the underlying assets. We actually have 40 contracts because we have 4,000 shares. Okay. And the date is a month out, which is January 9th. The strike price is at 58, which is the 20 delta. This shows you what the bid size and act size is today. Today there's 25 contracts willing to pay 75. There's 11 contracts asking for 79. And then we'll say we could pick market, or we could pick limit order. Let's say we did a limit order of 75. You can see that what we're going to collect for our $200,000 home for the rent. Remember last time we were only collecting $2,000 for our $200,000 home. For our $200,000 IBIT home, we're collecting $2,900 here. Okay, then we would just click preview order and then execute, and then this money would show up in our cash bucket in our brokerage account. Now, in order to track this, we have a spreadsheet. If you want the spreadsheet, just join the UROC Club Discord channel, and I can send this to you. It's pinned at in the general discussion. And I give you new three scenarios. This is the same call, but three different scenarios. I'm going to walk through this for you. So you have IBIT, we have our call, we got 40 calls. Um, we're doing 40 of these because we have 4,000 shares. Today's date, which is the 8th, and then 1 month out, this is the date that it's actually going to get executed on. Today's price, which is 51.52, and then the strike price. The delta that we picked was 20. We had a strike price of 58, and we collected a 75-cent fee for each share. Now notice that this dividend now is at 1.46%. So within 1 month, we're collecting a dividend of over 1%. Now these other variables are saying what happens when the price exit. So this is going in time, going forward in time. Let's say on January 9th, the price ends up at 60. That means it was above the strike price. Well, what would happen here is we would always collect our premium. We always do that no matter what. But we would also sell the stock for $58. So we'd sell the 4,000 shares of IBIT for $58. And we would collect an additional 12% on top of that. So the overall transaction that we did for the month was we're making 14% that month. We made 14%, which is a good thing. Now we no longer own the stock. We'd have to buy it back at a higher price or buy a different stock. But that's what the result would be if the price was over 58. Now, this is what I call a perfect covered call, is when the price actually is below the strike but above when we entered. So let's say it ended at $57. Well, we still would collect the 1.46%, but we wouldn't collect any of this other stuff because we would still own the underlying stock. But we're saying, well, Sean, what if it goes down to 48 or lower? Well, in this case, we still collect our premium, but just like anything, if we didn't do anything at all and we didn't do a covered call, we still would have been in the same situation that we are in now, except for now we have an additional 1.46%. So you do this against stocks that you want to hold long term, that you're okay holding long term, even on the down, even when it goes down. This kind of reduces the amount of money that you lose. So at the end of the day, we have an above, a perfect, and a below. So you can see here, and here are the final results. So if it's above, we collect $28,000. And if it's perfect, we collect 3,000. And if it's below, we collect 3,000. So in every situation, we're collecting money. Okay. And then this kind of shows you what the end result was. So we started off with a $200,000 IBIT home. And in this case, we ended up selling the home and we collected 232,000. So we have $232,000 worth of cash ready to buy another home and do this all over again. That's if it goes above. If it's perfect, then now we've actually have $3,000 worth of cash plus the stock that we own right now is now worth it's now worth 228,000. We started off with 206,000, so now the value of the house is actually higher. And then in the downside, if we own the house and we're not going to sell it anyway for years to come anyway, yeah, the price of the stock went down, but from the 206 to 192, but we collected a $3,000 rent. And that's the worst case scenario. So that's the sum of a covered call versus renting out your underlying stock. Let me go here and we'll close this down. And if you have any questions, join the UROC Club Discord.